Well, there we go. What a wonderful Maritime Arctic Safety and Security Conference this has been. Beautiful downtown St. John's. It's been a really wonderful event. This is the Over the Horizon podcast sponsored by the Atlantic Canadian Aerospace and Defense Association. And I can tell you, it has been an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with the folks here this last couple of days. I can tell you this. ACADA is doing something correctly because everybody we talk to loved the conference. They loved the opportunity to be in conversation with one another, whether they were government, academia, or industry. They were all talking about one another with one goal in mind, to solve some problems in the maritime and the Arctic, and it was really a pleasure to have them. You're doing great work. So tell us about the conference from your point of view.
Well, number one, we have an incredible team at ACADA, and they put their passion and their expertise into making sure these things happen. But we don't do it alone. We have a lot of great volunteers. We had a committee that was engaged right from the beginning on helping frame the theme and help identify who we want to come and speak, and then also getting the message out to make sure that we had the right audience, which brought together industry, the private sector, the public sector, and all the players that were having the conversation about the North. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked to some pretty significant people here on the podcast, whether it was the Admiral of the Navy, Admiral Santarpia, running the fleet and giving his perspective on the Arctic. We had, Lockheed Martin, C-SPAN, they were all sitting here, but they did one thing for us, and that was they explained to industry and academia, and in the case of the industry partners, to government, how they could best interact with one another. They were opening the door. They wanted to do business. But that doesn't happen unless there's lubricant to make it all happen.
That's a good point.
And ACADA is there, right? There are 170 members in this association, and all of them are itching to do business with one another. And you're making that happen. And you could sense that with every conversation.
Absolutely. And that's the sweet sauce that industry associations can bring to advancing some of these opportunities, and like the North, for instance. We know that we can create the environment for that networking, that conversation. We create a safe space to really talk about those big issues, but then also we create the relationships with the folks like the Rear Admiral to come and bring forward their strategy, and then also have some of the top primes come and talk about their challenges. And then what happens then is that we have our members, the SMEs, who want to get into those supply chains, and they're sitting at the same table. And that's where the collaboration happens.
And sitting at the same table, Victoria, let me pick up on that point with you. The events that ACADA pulls off specifically, or are heavily involved in within this region, they tend to be a little bit more intimate in terms of how people do business. Now, that has a lot to do with the culture of where we come from down here. We're very open and inviting to one another. But the difference is that you can go to a defense trade show all around the world, and trying to get access to somebody like Admiral Brian Santarpia is a complicated thing. Here you can have breakfast with Brian Santarpia first thing in the morning, or you can talk to Peter McKay, or you can talk to the head of business development for the big shipyards.
Well, I don't know if the audience knows this, but we actually were able to coordinate B2B meetings with our members and primes. So we had 45 B2B meetings take place here with 7 primes and governments at provincial and federal level. At this conference,
in a day and a half conference.
In the last 48 hours. Actually, it happened yesterday within a 3-hour period. So our members get face-to-face, individual face-to-face time with the primes at these conferences. So that happens outside of the conference agenda that we coordinate. So at ACADA and the Atlantic region, we know our members. We know who they are, we know what they do, we know where they're doing business in, we know their capabilities, and we know them by first name.
Yeah.
So we can reach out to them and say, we're doing this, and we want you, and tell us what you're looking for. And if they identify, yes, and we'll schedule them in. That's what happens behind the scenes at these conferences. So we add a lot of value. There's a lot of value. Now, we would love to see more members participate. This one is in St. John's, Newfoundland. Our next big event is DevSec in Halifax in October. We'll do the same thing there. Right. So it's one of the wonderful things that ACADA has established over the last 5 years, is really getting to know the membership and really finding out what they want, where they want to go, and we're building the pathway for them.
You certainly are. I can tell you that the conversations that we watch unfold in front of us, the handshakes that are being made, you know, what I enjoy about this, what ACADA does, is that I've witnessed companies that have nothing to do with the conversation will introduce somebody and say, I really think you should meet this person.
Yes.
Everybody is leaning in. We often use the term a rising tide floats all boats. I think ACADA gets that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And not only that, we had conversations today on what other industries can we get in on this conversation, especially this one about the North, because we know that there's so much expertise within the Atlantic region. There's a lot of businesses that may not know, and the partnerships that they can build with our membership to really start that conversation and say, okay, well, maybe we can do it together. So yeah, it's really exciting. There's a lot of possibilities here, and ACADA's up for the challenge.
100%. Well, and not only local stuff here. This is not local, what we just witnessed. This is national and international.
Absolutely.
I just watched Australians walk by.
We had New Zealand, Australia, Netherlands, and Britain here. So
Right.
we really did have an international conference.
This is fantastic. I mean, you've done a great show. Any last minute thoughts on it?
Oh my goodness.
Maybe I'll ask you one last question.
Sure.
What's over the horizon?
We're planning for 2023.
Okay.
And then we know what we're going to be building off of here, and we're going to take it into our next agenda for MAS 23. Anyway, there's lots to come.
Great.
Yep.
Jerry?
Victoria, just want to say thank you. You know, the thought leadership that Alan and I experienced, the people that were sitting in the chair you're in right now, brought together by your leadership and an incredible team, you're to be commended. We are so pleased at Gale Force Winds to be able to bring, we did 16 interviews.
16, yeah.
So whoever's watching this one, we'll post your little segment here shortly today, and those will be coming out over the next few weeks.
Can't wait to watch them, because I know what I experienced inside that room and the people that I met, because this is my first MAS. I can't wait to listen to those 16 and hear and learn like what you just did. Yeah. So thank you to
thank
Gale
you.
Force Winds
Thanks,
for
Victoria.
coming to MAS 2022, and we look forward to building this partnership, because you're helping us get the message out. So thank you very much.
Well, that's a wrap for MAS 2022, and I can tell you what a conference it was, Victoria. Great job. You and your team pulled off one great event for this country, and we thank you for it.
And I'm going to say this, we just snatched her off the floor as it ended. So you did a great job just sitting there, and thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Victoria.